Well, my first complaint after stressing out cutting out this guy, I get to the section where you got to put the top rails on, and you think, oh yeah, that'll be fine. Well, most of it's not all the way through. There's a lot of hard work. These pieces need a serious amount of cleaning, an effort to get them even acceptable. We shall continue after the stress of doing this guy. Having to put up with this shit. Sorry, I'm probably not having a good day, but you're going to cop it. Wasn't the greatest. It really is frustrating having to clean all this stuff. Bye. So, assuming you got through the mega stress of cutting the hull out, you should have something, or end up with something that looks a little bit like this. I have sanded all this smooth along here. Now she's now got a nice perfect shape along the keel on this side, and perfect shape on the other side. Put it back in there. I've levelled off all these things, left the ones that are supposed to be left the size that they are, and assuming they're all correct, and the capping, which is the next piece to go on the side here, should fit. Yeah, well, that's another story altogether. Alright, so I think we saw in the last video I was a little bit racked off with cutting the capping out of the sheet that it's supposed to be in, because it's very poorly CNC'd, or at least mine was. After cleaning them up, this is what they look like before they're fitted to the hull. Now, I'll move a couple of these pieces up so we can compare what was to what's needed to be done. So, you will need to sand and make sure all these are on the lines that they're on and all that level, and all these pins and everything cleaned off, and assuming they've cut them all to the right height as per the template, you can then start to try and fit these pieces one at a time. So the problem is none of them fit. After you clean them up, that one's probably about as close as you'll get. This one is completely different. Have to look across. 3 holes, 2 holes. Holes are not drilled out or completed or finished, and yet the diagram in the manual shows that they're supposed to be. This guy, no holes cut into it, requires 1 hole cut into it. This guy, no holes cut into it, requires 2 holes cut into it. This guy, no holes cut into it, requires lots of holes cut into it. So saying this guy, when you look at the instructions, it says that we put on this way. It doesn't, it goes on that way, and apart from the big area of the slots there, nothing lines up. So what has to be done to it, it has to be turned into an object like this, which then fits over the ribs, and all these 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 pieces on this side are the correct pieces for this side here. I'll zoom out and I'll show you how they fit on. And so we've cleaned up the first set of lugs and we've got a bit of sanding in between, and I'd say especially to shape these guys so the top piece would fit on and flatten it all out. One of these would come loose, so make sure that these are glued nicely against there. If they're not or loose, just bend them back, glue them, push them back in. I've cut all this section, haven't cut the last bit at the back. Now this is the piece that fits over it. The holes had to be adjusted here, not the positioning of them, but the size had to be cut out, and one of these holes was actually missing, so I had to replicate it by putting the other piece against it and drilling it out. Just slight adjustment on the edge there, but the first bit fits nicely. This is the next section to go over these two ridges, so I have to clean these up and level them all out, and this piece needs to go on, and once again this one has not been finished off. At least the hole markings are there, and some of them the markings weren't even there, so this will go on there. It's slightly longer than it's supposed to be, but there's a lip, obviously suggests that it hooks in or under. Don't know, we'll find out when we put it in. That's where that one will sit. So these are taking a lot of work, and obviously a lot of adjustment on these pieces as we cut through them. Those side railings, I don't know whether they're even in the right position. They should in theory line up flush with this. There's another rail that glues on the outside. I thought it was a complete unit, but it's not. Anyway, I'll continue working on this, and I would say it's going to take quite a while to do. There's a lot of cleaning up on there. I've straightened and cleaned up most of the ones on the other side. And this is the slow process. Cheers. Alright, I'm going to show you how these go in place. It's a lot of filing and sanding on these guys. A lot of cleaning up and filing and sanding on the hull. Now the rear section doesn't have a rail that sits over the top of the flat platform. It just has a single rail. There's one glued on the inside to hold these pieces in place. Another one will get glued on the outside to complete that. And there is a top rail that then sits over the top of that afterwards. But we'll show you how these go. I'll zoom in so I can get them in focus as best I can. Alright, so the first one starts off with 2 high, 3 low, 2 high, 1 low, 1 high. So you work out which piece it is, cut the holes, work out which piece it is, cut the holes into it, and if everything is done properly, it fits over it nicely. The next piece has 2 highs. It's this guy. Next piece has 4 highs in a row and 2 at the end. Just this guy. And no, they don't go on that easy to start off with. They do need to be adjusted and glued into place. There's a lot of effort to get those to line up and fit, but if you've cut your rods properly and you examine the pieces, they should fit. This is a single one. I think it was supposed to have been a double, but I'll add the extra one afterwards, because cut off this, there's plenty of that left over, keep it. So if you do accidentally cut off these pieces, you can cut those in sections and glue them on and no one will notice the difference. Next one was the most complicated one of the lot. There's lots of filing in here and panic and scare that it might break. But fits. Just got to work out which way around it goes. It sits over every one of those. Zoom in and I'll show you. And last but not least, this piece here, which sits up against the keel. And down over these last four there. Now these are lined up on angles. This section is left out because there's a separate piece that goes in here afterwards. But that's how your first rail of capping goes on. As I said, pieces you start off with are nothing like the pieces you finish with. If these ribs are lined up properly, in other words they haven't gone crooked when you built them, the holes are pretty close, so it's a matter of just filing it, either the edge of these or the holes in these units, and slowly fitting them on. It's about a week's worth of effort to get them all filed out and adjusted one by one. Was it 6 pieces? So it was 6 days roughly, 3 or 4 hours a night. It's not a fast process, but it does fit nice. I've now got to complete the one on the other side. So we'll see you in the next video when that's done. Just to let you know. That's your stove unit in the middle there. And what I did notice is after I cut it down, I could actually see all the cabin work inside. So I was happy that I did it. It's not super perfect, it's not super embellished, it just is as it is out of the kit. But I'm happy that I completed it this far. As I said, first time I've done one of these. Yes, the kit is a real challenge. Make sure you do the pieces right, because every step and every decision affects later steps severely. It's a slow process, not overly complicated, but you do need to think about pieces and slowly work your way through it, and don't cut chunks and go, oh, create a whole lot of those and then do that. Do it small steps and you should be good to go. See you in the next video.